booster ignition, and liftoff, and all systems are go.
Welcome to the Lesbo and the Bean universe. Lesbo and the Bean. LATB, LaTB, where mixed martial arts and the UFC get silly. Big silly. Buckle up and move your tray tables to their upright position. And please, somebody shut that baby up. It's time for Lesbo and the Bean.
Welcome back. Long time no see, folks. And guess what? We got a heater coming up this weekend. It's going to be a fun breakdown. There's been a ton of UFC news, ton of fights coming out. Even seen some fighters go to mysterious lengths to not have babies, but hopefully they're going to come out. Bryce Mitchell is just one of the most gruesome photos I've seen in a long time, and it wasn't gory. It was just a pair of bloody boxers. And did you know that you could wrap your nutsack up in a drill?
I actually, in life, one time, the part about the story that rang truest to me, so this, one of the fighters, Bryce Mitchell, was he doing overhead drilling? I was trying to follow the whole story.
He was doing some home construction. He had a drill in between his legs, holding it as he was holding something above his hands, and the drill went off, entangling his nutsack in the drill. He had presence of mind to be able to untangle it and go to the hospital, but his scrotum ripped right in half.
Yeah, the part of the story that just hit me, I understand it's balls and all that and owie and everything. I have drilled through my finger before.
Ouch.
And I had to reverse the drill and undrill it. And that was the hardest part of keeping wherewithal. I cannot imagine ripping through my nutsack or my vagina in any way, or even, some other part that wasn't just my finger.
Inside of your leg.
And you have to like,
yep.
Just breathe. And then you have to click the drill to the other side and undrill it. And you like pull out, but not too fast. I can't even imagine ball sack, which is so weird because I watched a story or a movie that I was going to recommend to you and your girl.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And it has some really awesome nutsack footage in it, I'm assuming?
Not nutsack, but peni, dick.
Damn.
It is called The Package on Netflix. And it is kind of a teen movie that we can't even believe we started watching to begin with. The cover of it is just an eggplant.
I have seen that and been like, I don't even know what this is about.
Yeah. It's a teen movie. It would rarely come up on your thing. It would be deep in the feed or say like
I think it's new, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's where I saw it
So it's a teen movie, but the kid on it we've seen in another Netflix movie. Like he must have signed a Netflix contract. And one of the girls on it is in the movie Blockers. She's one of the little teenagers that commits to losing her virginity on prom night. But this movie, the guy, I don't want to give any of it away. Perfect. It made us LOL. Like, I can't believe it's so stupid. You have to this is so stupid.
It's gonna be a campy ass movie, National Lampoon.
Campy kind of thing. Not the National Lampoon, though, because oddly enough, there's a brand new National Lampoon movie out.
I stopped giving a shit about those back when I was a kid. No, it's
about the guys who created the National Lampoon.
Oh, like a documentary?
No, like a movie. Like, there's characters, and the guy, Will Forte, isn't it? It's on Netflix as well. If you don't have Netflix and they don't even sponsor, but I feel like this is a good month. All these, I just gave them all those plugs.
That's true.
The Package is about a guy. Feel like I can tell you a little bit about it. It probably does in the thing. He cuts his dick off, and his friends have to help him. Like they're camping in the middle of nowhere, and they're like, "Oh my God, you just cut your dick off."
Well, I could see all sorts of fun antics you can get in after cutting.
Because that was a whole long story to get into for the ball rip. I had to link them together.
Link it all together. So, if you're a guy and you're listening, watch your nuts around things, boys, because you don't want any of that to happen to you. Either way, that's
horrible.
Some of the...
I hope everything works out okay.
Right here at LaTB, we like to profile the #1 male member, and we seem to kick off a long break with the right topics. But
yeah, so anyone that, if we're ever talking about like, oh, Michelle Watterson has some good old juicy thighs, everyone's like, you're sexist. Well, we talk a lot about dick. We talk a lot about, maybe right before we started the podcast, how Luke Rockhold should be starring in some remakes of Kick Tight Jean movies that Jean-Claude Van Damme, those movies of the 90s. Luke Rockhold.
We might have been talking about it before that.
He's a little chinny. So, anyways, what else is going on in
the
MMA?
UFC world? Well, we got a hell of a fight night.
Can we also say how rad Bellator's getting?
Yes, Bellator's getting very fun. We did have some premier quality content prior to this Lincoln card coming up. Bellator's been showing off WSO, or not, the World Series of Fighting is having fun fights. I'm watching all sorts of these local shows and being like, here at We Like to Tout, the evolution of the sport is coming from all these amateur
Can I tell you
scenes.
something?
Yes.
There is an old saying everyone's been saying wrong forever. We were talking about it the other night, and everyone's always been talking about how the early bird gets the worm. Early bird gets the worm. Well, the whole saying is actually the early bird gets the worm, but the second mouse gets the cheese. So it's kind of a bigger reward for being second sometimes. And so I always thought early bird gets the worm. Look at the UFC, they're killing it. I think the second mouse could get the cheese. I think it could be more of a slow grow with Bellator, and their model could be a little different, where they work around a lenient drug policy, where they don't even try to pretend like we're the strictest of the strict with USADA, but then overall John Jones has been tested one time in the last year. You know, they talk about how he's been in the pool, but he's only been tested one time. But then Daniel Cormier, let's say he's been tested 9 or 11. How fair is that? The guy who's been already accused twice has been tested one time, and the other guy's been tested 11. So USADA's still picky and choosy. It's the same as every other one. So I kind of, maybe Bellator could be where they end up with this division of things. I like the way they're doing the tournaments.
Love it.
They're ending up with beasts over in Bellator. UFC, they don't want to lose Eddie back to Bellator.
There's no even Eddie. I feel like there's, as you're saying, up in Caldwell, who profiled this weekend. There was also that sweet chin music with Connor's boy getting knocked out cleanly. Cleanly, that's been the rave of the town, definitely in the MMA world. Hey, Gallagher talked a lot of shit, ended up getting put in his place, and he is openly already come out and been like, he's going to keep doing it. That's his personality.
Oh, yeah, he was at the VMA the next night.
Not was it the same night or the next night?
Oh, I don't know how early the fights would take place.
Wait, never mind.
Maybe.
It might have been the next night. But people were asking him whether he was going to take time off, and he's like, no, this is my job, which I do find refreshing. Maybe not so much the other antics, but the fact that, hey, a loss doesn't make me anything. Like, it's not going to stop my shit talk, because if you're a fighter, you got to have that mindset. No ifs, ands, or buts. The guys that half-ass it don't make it. You don't see those guys. Guys that are trying to be champs. So, trying to be champs, we have a fun fight night coming up. Is this a pay-per-view out of the Lincoln, Nebraska 13-bout card? I think it might be just on
Yes,
Nope.
Is it? I don't know what I don't know where it's playing. Check your local listings, because we're always awful at that. But it is out of Lincoln, Nebraska.
It is. It's
in
a fight night.
the
So
United
it's
States of America.
on Fight Pass. Then it's going to be on FS1. Finish out on FS1. We are going to have a 13-card bout. A lot of veterans. Main event is a hell of a fun one. We've already started to break it down a little bit, but we're going to start from the bottom to the top with long veterans getting in at it. Luke Sanders against Hani Yahya at bantamweight. These guys both have multiple fights in the UFC. Sanders only having 2 losses at 12-2, both in the UFC, coming off of a win against his last fight, Patrick Williams, who probably is no longer in the UFC, coming in against Hani Yahya, who's 25-9 on a 2-fight winning streak. Last lost to Joe Soto decision, but since then has really been able to outwork Briones and Russell Donde in a submission. Hani Yahya's biggest issue, we know he's a ground guy. His Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu's on point. His wrestling has gotten a lot better, and it's always been his gas tank. Striking is what it's going to be at his advanced stage now. At 33 at the bantamweight, he should be, that's like 50 years old in a lot of other weight classes. It's unreal. maybe not so much. But either way, his cardio has always been Hani Yaya's issue in his last 2 fights. He really showed that his
He's
cardio
kind of like
on
a little
point.
Damian Maya, though, where Damian Maya is an old MF, too.
True.
And he has that same style, just a smaller dude.
And I don't think he's evolving as much, Hani Yaya. I think he's a great grappler. His shots are iffy. It's just his gas tank that he's finally gotten under control, because that's always been his biggest issue. He can take a mean punch as well. His striking, though, is very limited, and that's where he's his worst at, is if he keeps a fight striking for too long, he can get outpaced and outworked. And Luke Sanders is really a wrestler with also very limited striking. Has a looping overhand right that he likes to spam a lot, and his footwork is very alpha male-ish-esque, even though he's coming out of Nashville MMA. Luke Sanders is a slight favorite as of right now, -110 against Hani Yaya. I think this is just a bad stylistic matchup for Sanders. He likes to shoot in a lot, and in his 2 losses that he had, he was clearly winning those fights, but ended up getting caught in the last minute of pretty much each round by being finished via submission and or knockout. Luke Sanders is gonna have other tough fights in here. This is gonna be a hell of a scrap. I'm gonna have to stay away, LaTB play as usual, but I'm gonna go with Yaya decision. I got a slight underdog to start the night off. Actually, this is a -120, so this is a coin flip of a fight. -110, -120 for Yaya against Sanders. I don't know if I'm going to play it much on my DK. How are you feeling about this first fight?
Ugh, this is a really risky fight. I think Yaya could get knocked out by Luke, and I think Luke could be submitted. I have Yaya submission round 2, into round 2 right now, middle of round 2, but I'm going to stay away from this as well. I think it could go either way. This is a scary fight.
Super scary fight. 8,300 for Yaya.
This fight could cost you your night. Like, where you're like, oh, first fight of the night, and 2 of my DraftKings cards are whoop.
Yep, right out the door. Against Sanders, 7,900 on DraftKings. Again, I'm going to probably find other spots on this night to be able to put that DK money away. Then we go to the 155-pound division, Drew Dober versus John Tuck. Drew Dober coming in with a 19-8 record against Tuck's 10-4. Tuck only mainly losing in the UFC. Both of these guys have many, many fights in the UFC. Tuck coming off of a win against Takanori Gomi, who is the most fadeable fighter we've had in a very long time. So Tuck, when push comes to shove against people like, who are a few of his losses here, Josh Emmett via split decision, Damian Brown via split decision, and Kevin Lee via decision. In his UFC career, Tuck will give fights away as well. He blows out in the first round and really just pretty much stays in there by having a granite chin and taking punches until the fight's over. Drew Dober was a 170-pounder who was thick. Now he's at 155 pounds. He's a fucking monster. Absolute monster. He's a decided favorite here because Tuck on the ground doesn't have good takedown defense, and his submissions are okay, but Drew Dober has that American wrestling. He likes to call himself a kickboxer, but really is just the more advanced MMA fighter all the way around. I think that this goes one-sided to Dober. Maybe a finish in the 3rd or 4th, but Tuck has that resilience, and that's why he can stick around and beat some of these lower-level guys by just being tougher than them. I think Dober's got a check in pretty much every spot here. Going with Dober for a decision. Who do you have for this fight of the night? Fight night.
Jeez. Even the Kevin Lee that Tuck lost to wasn't quite the Kevin Lee of today. Kevin Lee was losing back then, but he figured something out in his game.
He moved up in weight.
Truth. No, 155. That's still where Kevin Lee fights.
No, he was a 145er who moved up to 55. Tuck as well was a 145er who moved up. Dude, Dober's 170
true.
who moved down to 155. This is gonna be a fucking humongous size difference, but that's why it's -200 for Drew Dober right now.
I don't know. Drew Dober, doesn't he have problem making weight? We've seen it in the past.
I don't think I have.
I don't know. I don't want to look it up, but that makes me a little nervous. Yeah, then Dober, I guess, because he's going to be such an enormous guy if John Tuck came up, and I just can't ever get on the Tuck train.
Tuck is 5'11".
I know, but
Against 5'8", Dober.
He's not a guy that is what has ever been one of my favorites. I think that Drew Dober can add it as another person that he beats. I'm going to put KO round 2. He does have that kind of power, and if he was a 145er at one point, I didn't know that for Tuck.
Yeah. He's definitely been a lighter guy.
I didn't pay attention.
He doesn't fight as much as you would think. I think in 3 years, since 3 years, he's fought 3 times. 1 a year. That's a rough one. 8,900 for Dober against 7,300 for John Tuck. Oh, that's a little steep. We need a finish for Dober there on my DraftKings. Maybe later on in the night how it goes. It's a steep price for a decision in my eyes. Do you think you're going to play Dober much here?
No. And yeah, I'm not very excited for it. And even the people that he's beat, though, like the knockout against Berkman, I kind of feel the same way about if he knocks out Tuck. It's one of those things I'm going to look back at that it's going to make me question, it was Josh Berkman,
Yep.
It was John Tuck.
I totally agree. I think that could be a potential fight of the night, though. I think that these guys can really scrap at it. You think it's going to be boring? No? All right. We'll see.
It might be a good fight. I just think Drew Dober can knock him out. If he's going to be that much bigger than him decisively, because I always think Drew Dober looks big anyway.
At 170 he was not a small guy. Well, maybe this one will light your fire with Kalindra Ferreira against Joanne Jojo Calderwood at 125 pounds. Calderwood 11-3, only lost in the UFC coming out of the show. Her last 2 losses have been to Jessica Andrade and Cynthia Calvillo in a decision. Ferreira has lost 2 in a row at 18-7 against her UFC competition against debuting Barella and as well Jessica I via split decision. And if you got a loss to Jessica I in our eyes.
But we did say Jessica I looked better than she's ever looked.
Ever.
Like maybe 125 is her gig.
And with this fight, the thing that I just can't trust with the decided favorite here is always Joanne Calderwood. She's flopped in a couple fights just because she said that she hasn't been in the right place. So what that really tells us is that she has external factors that could really F her up, and it's just not reliable. I don't know how she could ever be over 2-1 favorite, and she's not here at a -160. She's almost there, but I do think if Calderwood has all her ducks in a row, that she beats Ferreira everywhere. Striking, on the ground, pace. I mean, Calderwood has a good straight left. I don't think Calderwood goes home. Ferreira does. Because Calderwood has lost to top 5, top 10 women. And Ferreira has lost to nobody's. So I think this is a make or break for Ferreira, who tends to be a striker, has no good takedown defense at all. And Calderwood actually recently got on and talked about how she moved camps, got out of TriStar, her last 2 losses being at TriStar, and has been with actually a team. I think she's training with Team Oyama. Could be wrong on that. But I know that she is training with a few other UFC women in her weight class or under her. I got Calderwood here, decision. I'm just going to stay away from this just because Calderwood could watch a bad commercial on the way into the ring and we're fucked here. So.
I don't even want to throw a punch.
Yeah, exactly.
I still won my fight and you still only got 32 points on your DK.
I got Calderwood decision. Who would you pick?
Same.
8,800 for Calderwood against 7,400 for Ferreira. Is there a play anywhere there?
Nope.
I agree with that. Dang. Maybe this fun fight night isn't such a fun fight night.
Wait, we're little. This is not even, it hasn't even started for
the profile
casuals.
Fights. Yeah, true that. Then we go to Mickey Gall against George Sullivan. Both of these young men have had multiple fights at 170 pounds. Sullivan coming in at a ripe age of 37 years old. He's on a 2-fight losing streak, being 17-6. His last 2 losses are to Alexander Volkanov, and the last one was, who do we have here? Can't gather it. Either way, Mickey Gall's coming in with a 4-1 record, losing to Randy Brown decidedly on the ground. Really showed we hit Mickey Gall's deficiencies. He's supposed to be an elite ground guy. Didn't look that elite against Randy Brown, who just got knocked out off of his back against Nico Price.
But don't you like Randy Brown? Don't you think he is full of skill set?
I would agree with that, and we just saw a gaping hole in Mickey Gall's game. His striking is also very limited, and an aging Sullivan is still way more top level competition than a lot of other guys that he's fought in there. So Mickey Gall beating Sage Northcutt and CM Punk, I mean, Sullivan would easily, I would say, beat those guys. Maybe Northcutt, that'd be a good test for him next. Sullivan,
He's already fought Northcutt.
Sullivan has?
Oh, not Sullivan. I'm sorry. I was thinking of Mickey.
Oh, yeah, no. But George Sullivan, his last loss is to also Nico Price via submission 6 months ago. So they have, well, they're kind of tied in MMA in there. George Sullivan, though, stiff, rigid punches, has a good gas tank, is tough as nails, and on the ground is a black belt. Has been a black belt for a very long time. And Mickey Gall's still only a purple belt. I know it's a UFC purple belt. His striking is coming along. I do think that Mickey Gall is the fighter who's going to grow leaps and bounds in every fight. So we could see a brand new Mickey Gall right now. At 26 years old, we can really see a big step up from his first loss. And that's when we usually tend to see it with these guys. Is now Mickey Gall's like, ooh, I need to beat Randy Brown level-esque guys. I need to get after it. So I got Gall decision here, but I'm going to really be tentative here because I think if you think Sullivan has a chance at all, you should play him heavily. There is avenues for the fight to get onto the ground, and on the ground, we have seen Mickey Gall can get outworked. Sullivan can do that, make it a grinding match. How do you feel this one goes down?
I think even though the height says 6'2" to 6 foot in Mickey Gall's favor, I think Mickey Gall has really long arms, and I think he's going to pull out a submission here. It might take him 3 rounds to do it, maybe the end of round 2. I just think he has some kind of weird length. So even though he is only a purple belt to a black belt, I didn't really know that about Sullivan because I don't even really recall him on the ground so much in his last couple of fights. So if they both tend to stay standing, you know, Mickey was a young guy, and going in the UFC, it's easy to look bad, but he still beat Sage, and I think Sage has more power than Sullivan. So I'm not really worried so much about Mickey getting knocked out. But the other thing's true. Didn't Mickey move up in weight? Wasn't he at 155 at one point? Or does he want to go down to 155?
No, he
but the UFC
challenged
won't
Sage
let him?
Northcutt, and Northcutt was like, okay, I'll go to 170.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yeah, that's what happened.
Does Mickey Gall want to go down to 155?
I think he's talked about it, but he hasn't done it yet. But yeah, I do feel like he's talked about
Anyways,
that.
I have Gall submission, but I totally agree with everything you're saying. I think Sullivan is like a grimy old dog.
Yep.
Like, he's seen all the tricks.
Exactly. Mickey Gall, 9,200 against 7,000 for Sullivan. I'm not putting Gall in a lot of spots there.
No.
Unless you see a finish. I will play him on a couple cards, but 9-2 is a hard price to pay off. You pretty much got to get a finish in the first. Then we go to the middleweights. Andrew Sanchez versus Marcus Perez. Both of these guys coming off of UFC shows. Perez, I believe, was off of the Contender Series. Coming in, losing against Anders in a decision, and then beating James Bachadovich 3 months ago. Andrew Sanchez coming off of the Contender Series, but getting his last 2 losses against Anthony Smith a year ago, and then last losing to Ryan James in one of the best comebacks of the year. Ryan James got picked apart for 1 round, and then Andrew Sanchez gassed with a bad chin. Andrew Sanchez has everything he needs in a fight to be a top-level contender, other than he can't take a punch, and he's been gassing, so his wrestling's on point. He has good position in submission, and his striking isn't horrible, but he really wants to get those fights to the ground. But if his gas tank doesn't hold up, which it hasn't, it's really something I can't put any weight into. Perez has shown us that he can go to decision if need be. I'd say Anders is really looking like a good fighter in there, and Perez was not completely out of that fight. He showed he had a lot of heart in there and is crafty on the ground as well. I want to go with Sanchez because he's one of those fighters that will be winning all 3 rounds and then all of a sudden need a punch and it'll be over. And for that reason, I'm going to say that in this fight, Andrew Sanchez wins 3 minutes of each round and then gets hurt at some point in time and then gives the round to Perez. even though Perez isn't the best guy in there right now. It's just fading more Sanchez. I'm going to go with decision Perez. I'm going to be sketchy and not be spot on, or not put this heavily anywhere as well. I'm going to sit back and enjoy it. How do you feel this one goes down? Tentative fight, near even odds, minus 130 Perez against the plus 100 Sanchez.
I have Perez submission round 2, and I kind of have it handedly. I think Andrew gasses himself. He tries for a knockout punch, and I don't think he's going to find it here. I know he found it against Ryan James, but I think Ryan James is not necessarily UFC caliber. I don't know if I ever thought he was.
I thought you really liked Ryan James in that last fight against Sanchez because you had James, and he fucking showed up. He showed up.
I know, and I was surprised at first, but I just also...
James came back and whooped his ass.
Yeah, I know. He lost to James.
No, he almost knocked out James. And James took a beating for the first round, and then Sanchez gassed so bad that James came back and fucking kicked the shit out of Sanchez.
That's what I'm saying, is he lost to James, and I don't think James is UFC caliber.
Oh, okay. Yes, sorry. We were saying the same thing.
But Marcus Perez, I do think he is. I think he's one to watch. So Perez submission, round 2.
8,200 for Perez against 8,000 Sanchez. I'm going to put Perez on a few cards.
I do too. How much did you say it was?
8,002 against 8,000.
Yeah, I'm going to need some of those medium guys to afford anything at this point.
Right. And at bantamweight, we're going to have a hell of a fun fight. This one's a fight that I think I'm going to try to profile. We have Corey Samhagen, 8-1 against Yuri Alcantara, 36-9. Longtime veteran Alcantara is now 38 years old at bantamweight. If I was saying homeboy at 33 was ancient, this guy's pretty much a fossil. Alcantara, great on the ground submission Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy. Good striking, has good Muay Thai. Gas tank is serviceable. He's one of these guys that will be winning a fight until he's not. Against Uriah Faber, it was a 29-28. It was a 30-28 round against Faber. 10-8 round, and then Alcantara's gas tank / I don't know what happened, just gave up, and Uriah Faber came back and won that fight. But Alcantara has those moments in fights where he looks unbelievable, and then the very next minute you're just like, wow, is this guy a brown belt? Is this guy way lower than he needs to be? Sandhagen has come in and made a splash in the UFC, getting a knockout via body shot against Austin Arnett 6 months ago. Really loved how Samhagen went from the body to the head. Good clean boxing, a good wrestler. On the ground, we haven't seen him as much, and Yuri Alcantara is definitely a humongous step up here. A lot of people, though, are still on Samhagen because on the regional scene, he's been able to put beautiful combinations together, has great footwork, and is showing us these young guys are bringing it all together. Coming out of Elevation Fight Team, you know he's training with TJ. You know he's got all those other guys in his back pocket. I also have Samhagen here. Seen him go 3 rounds before. Again, they're not the level of Yuri Alcantara, but I think this is more of a fade on Alcantara than anything. Alcantara is coming off of a win his last fight against Joe Soto, TKO punches 6 months ago, but I think I'd pick Samhagen over Soto as well in this position. So I'm going to go with Samhagen via TKO, round number 3. I think it's a beating until Alcantara is just like, you know what, man, I'm 38 years old. I don't need to keep getting my ass whooped like this by these young up-and-comers. Who do you have in this fight?
I could totally see that happening. It isn't because it's just a wear on Alcantara. I also think Sandhagen's one to watch. I think it's like the perfect meeting of a guy. I think this is a potential fight of the night fight.
Totally.
I think this is going to be everything. And if it is finished, it's not going to be from Alcantara's chin. It's going to be from a body shot. Gosh, I don't know what the cost is for both guys, but I think there's going to be so many points in this fight. This could be money on your card.
So, 9,000 for Corey Samhagen against 7,200 for Alcantara. Is Alcantara a wager gauger there?
I have Sandhagen decision. You have a KO finish
round
at
3.
I think Alcantara can throw enough.
to be the wager gauge there potentially for that low.
How much did you say he was?
7'2".
Yeah, I think he actually could be a great wager gauge. I don't see him getting knocked out. I think he has a good chin.
It's a tough test. It's a tough test for Sam Hagen, not for Alcantara, because he's been in there against elites as well. So that veteranship really takes you far. Against Arnett, he was able to overwhelm him and just make him look bad. Yuri's got a little more depth to that game, but I am putting a lot of weight into that fight team, into that TJ.
It isn't because
training.
I think Alcantara will throw less punches. I just think that Sandhagen's are going to be a little more devastating. And I know how I'm trying to start, instead of who I think's going to win, I'm trying to put judges into factor. We're in Lincoln, Nebraska. It's going to be so, where it's...
You want the American boy to win.
And the 3-punch combinations that are more devastating might matter more than pitter-patter of 8. It's a weird... It depends on where you're at. And I think, America likes to drop them bombs.
Damn. So, we're going to have another
Lincoln, Nebraska. And they also might pay attention to a lot of wrestling. It should be smart with transitions and getting scored.
I think they're going to have a good crowd there as well. Hopefully they come out, local Nebraskans. And for a profile fight on Fight Pass, this is one that also could be fight of the night. Yuri Alcantara is already on there for a potential fight of the night. And we have another showstopper with James Krause against Warlley Alves. This is a fucking amazing fight. I know that people are saying, hey, Warlley Alves... 12-2, only lost in the UFC against Usman and freaking who's the
Barberena.
Barberena.
Who is our forever underdog.
Exactly. Sultan Aliyev via TKO doctor stoppage, eye injury 3 months ago for Warlley Alves, and also Salam Tahouri decision. Alves' gas tank can be taxed, and that's how you tend to get Warlley Alves out of there. He has powerful strikes, throws very looping punches, and on the ground is all sorts of a black belt coming out of Brazil. He has submissions over elite guys like Colby Covington as well early on in Covington's career. Warlley Alves' guillotine is his best defense in there, and James Krause doesn't really shoot that much. He's a good striker, long for the division, uses his length well, 25-7. He is a moderate underdog at plus 330 against Warlley Alves minus 500. If there's a guy that would, to me, more likely take it to the ground, it's going to be Warlley Alves wanting to get it there, because I think standing, Krause is way craftier of a striker. On the ground, Krause can get outworked a bit. We did see that on the show, and we've seen it in other fights for him, but this is just so much closer than the odds have it for me. I see so much value, if you could say that, for James Krause in here, that I have him in a decision. I think he's a smart fighter. I think, as you're saying, Nebraska plays a factor here. I think the takedown defense that Krause has is going to dictate where this fight stays. In this fight, if it stays standing, the only times Krause is going to be in trouble is going to be that first round. Once Krause gets out of there, I think he wins the second and third round handedly and a pitter-patter because of that striking. And I got, humongous underdog. We got a big boy here with James Krause in a decision. How you like that?
Wow. I have it totally the other way. I think Alves is a huge step up, and I'm surprised that it's such a huge underdog for James Krause. I think the fight should be closer, like you're saying. I just think James Krause has not had the level of competition that Warlley Alves is. And maybe everyone can be like, look at those 2 losses. Now look at what we know of Kamaru Usman. Like, are you kidding me? So to go to decision with Usman is a stretch in itself. And I think James Krause isn't as good as Usman there.
I don't think it's going to be that route, though. It's not going to be a wrestling route. It's going to be a striking route. Going to be killing by a dollar.
I got Alves by decision. I think he can hold him down and smother him, and it's going to happen eventually. So, hopefully the takedown defense is there, and that would make it go your way. But I don't think James Krause is a walkthrough at all. And if this is his fight, though, that gets him to the big boys.
If he gets through Warlley Alves, he immediately...
Yeah, this is the one.
Definitely.
And I love James Krause here. I do like him as a hot underdog pick. I do see everything you're talking about, but I just have Warlley Alves decision.
I like it. You got to stick to your guns sometimes, and Warlley Alves, 9,300 against James Krause, 6,900 on DraftKings. If you're going with the bean, you know you're going to be putting Kraus on, I'd say 60% of my cards. Can't go 100% because it's a big underdog, but he's going to let me afford some of these heavyweights that I'm going to want later on the night. Fun fight of the night. I think also potential fight of the night. Perfect prelim.
It should be on the main card.
It does start off the main card, so it has that. I like that it's profiled there. But then we're going to open
Isn't it just the prelim card?
It's the headliner prelim.
Yeah, it should be on the main card, though. There's definitely fights on the main card that could swap places with that, and it would make more sense.
I could see that. Totally. And opening up the main card, we have Eric Anders coming in against Tim Williams. Anders being 10-1, getting his first loss ever against Lyoto Machida 6 months ago in a split decision. And Tim Williams being 15-4, losing to who was his first loss in the UFC against Oscar Pichota.
Who is frightening AF.
I think he just lost this fight, didn't he, Pichota?
Probably.
I think it was.
I have no memory.
So
no short term. I need it in front of me.
Neither does he. I feel like he was done. So Anders is a humongous favorite, probably one of the biggest of the fight of the night, and we all see why. Tim Williams has not fought anyone of the level of Anders. Anders has gotten through a few top-level guys, having a few fights in the UFC now.
I mean, he lost to a juiced-up Lyoto Machida.
Yeah, but prior to that, he beat Rafael Natal. He beat Marcus Perez in a decision. He's been tested in there a few times. Williams hasn't looked well in there at all, and everyone sees it. It's a knockout. Anders has got tons of power, good takedown defense, and Lyoto Machida with a lifetime of bag of tricks in there. I just haven't seen Tim Williams use half of that type of movement in order to put a game plan good enough together. I think this could actually be a really boring fight because I think Tim Williams isn't going to want to strike. He doesn't want to deal with that power, and he's going to try to push Anders against the fence the entire time. But I do have Anders TKO round number 1.
Me too. I think this is going to be a quick fight. I don't think there's going to be anything boring about it. I think he's going to want to push him up against the fence, and Eric Anders is going to set up a nice combination with some devastating elbows, an uppercut. I don't think you want to get in that close quarter range with Eric Anders. We saw what happened to Mike Perry. Isn't that who he fought?
Marcus Perez.
Oh,
no. I don't think he fought Perry. Perry's, this is 185.
Oh, yeah. I always get the, Marcus Perez. But, yeah, I think he's devastating power, and I think this is almost a setup fight for him.
Minus 900. That's almost Valentina Shevchenko versus Montano money.
That's a little cry. But maybe everybody sees what we see. We both have KO round 1.
We were talking about Shev versus Montano real quick and how that was at minus 700, and we're like, dang, that's pretty heavy. Yeah, it's like minus 1100 now.
It should be.
It's unreal. There's never been a champion with that type of odds against them.
I felt like Ronda somebody had a 1200, no?
I don't think so.
Oh, a champion with that kind of odds. Against them. Yeah,
against the number one contender? That's nuts.
Okay.
So, just saying, if you thought the juice was, that's
but the bullet is looking so cute. Like she has a stylist or something.
Her Insta's getting on point. That Graham's on point.
Yeah.
I agree. I enjoy it. Definitely give her a follow there. But then we go to the 125ers with John Moraga against Divicio Figueiredo. And both of these fighters, 14-0 for Figueiredo against Moraga's 19-6. Moraga has by far the more decorated career in there, losing to people like Demetrius Johnson and who else in there? Matthew Nicolau, which we just saw Nicolau get starched. But either way, Moraga's come on a 3-fight winning streak, beating, was it Balutinov? Where here at LaTB, Moraga came through for us. One of the biggest underdogs we've had in a very long time. Then his last decision over Wilson Hayes. Wilson Hayes, a shell of himself as well. Moraga's got a tough task ahead of him. A lot of people are liking Figueroa for being a top. I think he's number 14 right now at flyweight division. Devastating power, great Muay Thai on the ground, a great scrambler. We haven't seen it. We've seen his gas tank. Figueroa tends to slow down a little bit, but we haven't seen him in there against a good wrestler. And John Moraga can do that exact thing. Joey Beltran is a win for him. Jared Brooks split decision. So I guess that's a really good wrestler that Figueroa does have a win over. And Moraga needs to use more of that wrestling game plan in order to be in this fight. I think Figueroa can keep it standing and win a point fight, like I was saying earlier in the night. This is a really fun scramble. This has a potential for fight of the night because both of these boys can bang. Moraga has that type of power as well, and we have seen it showcased in the UFC a few times. I got the slight favorite here in Figueroa. I think it's a decision, but there's money to be made on Moraga here. I think Moraga is a super live dog. I'm not going to be as heavy as I would be against other positions for Figueroa because I think he has easier fights in the UFC. Moraga is a sneakily hard fight that people overlook a lot of the time. But I do think that this goes to decision. Figueroa, how do you feel this one goes down?
I'm not as high on Jared Brooks as everyone else. So the split decision there, was this on me?
Skeptical hippo?
John Moraga's the real deal and only loses to the real deal. I got Moraga decision, and I think this is that close of a fight. It is a super close fight. It's going to be a quick little banger, but I think Moraga can hold down and wear out Figueroa. His body type, it just wears away all of his cardio. Yeah. And I think Moraga can wear out that cardio.
I agree with that.
Not worry about the punches and keep getting inside and taking down. So Moraga decision.
8,400 for Divicio against Moraga 7,800. I might split. I'm gonna actually probably profile Moraga here more than I would Figueroa.
I think
my
so.
DraftKings because for that value a little bit there. But I am gonna mix it up and put both of those guys because it's gonna be again really high paced fight. I don't see how those guys don't score a lot. And then we go to perennial underdog, perennial LaTB favorite, Brian Barberina against Jake Ellenberger at 170 pounds. Ellenberger, long-time 31-14 career, coming off of a 3-fight losing streak. We almost saw Jake Ellenberger die last time in there against Mike Perry. One of these guys that we perennially say here, please retire. Doesn't matter who it is in there. It's just your time has come. Ellenberger's had a hell of a career and been in enough battles.
This is going to be a bloody fight. You already know it ahead of time. Both guys are bleeders.
They are bleeders. Barberina 13-5 coming off of a loss to Leon Edwards where Barberina's gas tank was really tested in the wrestling there. Edwards came through and showed. Beating Joe Proctor in a TKO. Barberina's gotten more into that slugging mentality, but he's a grinder. That's why we tend to like him here at LaTB. He can put in his head down, keep going for shots, and eventually just wear your ass out. Against Jake Ellenberger, to wear him out in that fashion, I think it'll eventually just give up the finish. And by no means is Barberina a finisher, even though he gets a lot of finishes in there, and it's due to the grind, and this is a fade all over Jake Ellenberger. It doesn't matter what it is. Jake Ellenberger's twisted his ankle and lost a fight in there. He's been killed in there. He's just had really weird things that happen, and he's one of the unluckiest guys, and he'll say it himself.
2 months ago? What in the hell?
So, that's why it's a -500.
He's from Nebraska is why.
Oh, even more of a reason not to do it because you're going to go out on a stretcher and say you retire in there, but you're going to probably have to wake up and be like, where am I? For no reason. Brian Barberina, I think, knows this as well. Going to put his head down and just punch until Jake Ellenberger isn't there anymore. I got TKO round number 1 for Barberina. Heavy favorite. Who do you have here?
Same.
Yeah. 9,500 against 6,700.
Same. Brian Barberina or Jake Ellenberger, don't do this anymore. And so close. What are you trying to do? Like, what are you trying to prove? I understand money. Like, you have made whatever money. You have wrung this sponge of MMA dry. You got to figure out another way now. You got to figure out another way.
Totally agree. 9,500.
But he's probably grandfathered into an old ass contract, and he's probably making like crazy money.
I guarantee you he is at 33 and whatever. Yeah, he's making bank for those appearances. Then we have 9,500 on DraftKings against 6-7. I'm going to put Barberina in a lot of spots. That's why I'm going to have to pick other fights there. We saw 9,700 for Anders as well. These are bloated DraftKings prices.
Yeah.
So, but minus
a
9.
finish.
Woo. Then we go to the strawweights. Angela Hill against Courtney Casey. We've seen both of these ladies get it done in there. Courtney Casey being 7-6, coming off of a 2-fight losing streak, losing her last fight to Michelle Watterson. People, Michelle Watterson. Just so you know, it was a split decision, and also losing a split decision to Felice Herring against Angela Hill, who's coming off of a win against.
But Felice
Myron
Herring
Munoz.
has tightened up her game.
I would agree. Felice Herring is
but
a much
Michelle
better
Watterson, people.
Well, come on. Michelle Watterson. Angela Hill losing to Nina Asneroff, but getting a win in there, or losing Andrade, getting a couple wins to Yoder as well. We know what both of these ladies bring. Kickboxing, a lot of key on from the Casey herself. She's going to be letting you know where she's coming in, where Angela Hill has that good Muay Thai, has really started to bring it around. Her takedown defense has gotten way better her second time around in the UFC. She never deserved to leave. She's fought the way higher caliber. Striking wise, I give the output slightly to Casey, but I give the more precision shots by far to Angela Hill here, and I think that's going to really limit the entries for Casey. She's then going to go to the takedowns, and when she isn't able to take Angela Hill down, then it's a matter of time before Hill points out a decision. I don't see a finish here at all. I think you're going to be able to make a mixed drink in between this one and still have some of the fight left. It's going to go the full 15 all the way around. I'm not going to probably profile it. This is one of those switches that you were talking about earlier, potentially, for me, but I do have Hill in a decision. How do you go?
I think Hill in an easy decision. The people she's lost to are so, in my opinion, title contenders in the division. Jessica Andrade, who I think is probably Rose's next match, or who I think is most improved in the division, Nina Astronoff. So Angela Hill is right there. She's in that top 6, top 5 to me of girls. Like, she's in that top thrush of 115ers. I guess thrush isn't a yeasty word to use for the women's division, or any division for that matter. But I like Angela Hill here. I think this is a good win on her, and I'm looking forward to watching her grow. I think she's a fun personality, too.
Minus 150 for Angela Hill against...
I was falling off for a little while, and now I'm back on.
Nice.
This is a nice, good fight for her. Anyway.
8,500 on DraftKings for Hill against 7,700 for Casey. I think that's all in line.
How much for Angela Hill?
8,500.
Yeah, I don't see a finish.
Yeah, you agree. So I think it's
and
right
I
around
do
there.
think it's going to slow up. I don't know. I don't think 8-5 is going to be right at point. I think it's going to be not great points.
Bloated? Yeah, I agree. I'm not going to profile this fight on my DraftKings much at all. But for the co-main event, we have a banger. This one can easily be a fight of the night. We have Michael Johnson against Andre Touchy Feely. Feely coming in with an 18-5 record against 17-13 Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson, those losses have all been to top-level competition. Habib, freaking, who else in there? Gaethje.
Are you kidding?
Elkins.
Feely's beaten the ultimate king, Artem Lobov.
The number one GOAT ever.
Ever.
Andre Feely coming out of the Team Alpha Male camp. He's really been coming into his own at 28 years old. He had a couple hiccups in there, but has really shown his toughness out a lot more, and is really starting to show great kicks in there. Has always had a good takedown. On the ground, he's stifling. Andre Feely has gotten his gas tank under him and is a tough fight for anyone. Michael Johnson is in a 3-fight losing streak, but it's against Darren Elkins, Habib, and Justin Gaethje, who's in the main event in one of the fights of the year. Michael Johnson comes in there to bang, has good kickboxing, good takedown defense, but he can be out-wrestled. Again, it was Habib doing all that wrestling, but other guys have been able to hold Michael Johnson down. Andre Feely doesn't really do that much, so I do think that this is going to be a striker's delight. And the more dexterity in the feet by far is Andre Touchy Feely. And his movement, I think, is a little more alpha male style, where we see Michael Johnson set up that Florida style of kickboxing. Tons of power.
When I think alpha male style, I'm like, it's a perfect setup to get knocked out.
Overhand right.
To get knocked out.
But Andre Fili, again, I do think he's coming into his own. I really like him, and stylistically, this is just a really bad fight for anyone. Michael Johnson's not easy fight for anyone. At a minus 150, I think that's the right spot on right odds. I just think that when Fili has really been pushed backwards, he doesn't do well, and that's what Michael Johnson does really well, especially if he dinged you a little bit. Michael Johnson will jump all over you. That's why Michael Johnson has been in fights of the year potential, is because he goes in there to sling, and he has a heavy, heavy right hand. I really am excited for this one. I'm really excited for this one. I could think this could profile a different UFC fight night.
This could be another fight of the night contender.
I got Johnson, TKO round number 2. Slight favorite here. I like Fili too. There's no losers for me in here. I don't think either stock goes down. How do you feel this one goes down?
I like everything you're saying. I think poor Michael Johnson, man. Darren Elkins is the sleeper of the division.
Yep.
Justin Gaethje, in my opinion, Michael Johnson had the hardest fight with him. He had his biggest layoff that Justin Gaethje's ever taken, that he was the freshest version of Justin Gaethje coming into the UFC. And then they have this crazy, where no one knew about Justin Gaethje. I mean, we all knew about Justin Gaethje's leg kicks, but that fight was the best example. It was he used them. It's like he stayed with his game plan of using those leg kicks the most on Michael Johnson. So it was just brutal that fight to watch. But then the other Khabib, come on, everybody knows about that, and he was actually the only guy to ever wobble Khabib.
I'm actually willing to take the fight.
And then Nate Diaz at his best version of Nate Diaz.
Right.
Which that fight was a banger.
Yep.
Yeah, this isn't. I have Johnson KO round 3, but now thinking about it, just the caliber of guys and the fight he's willing to put on, Michael Johnson needs to be considered one of those greats. And I love Fili. This is just too much bite for him to have. He's not going to be able to chew this. And Michael Johnson needs a good win. I think Johnson is going to finish Fili. Johnson KO round 2.
Whoa. So we have a decided spot on. Usually when we...
I did have round 3, but the caliber of the guys that he's fought are just so incredible.
When at LaTB here, when Lesbo and the Bean both agree on the round and style of stoppage, it tends to be good prop money, and you might get that round number 2 specifically prop bet inside the distance for Michael Johnson. I do think he's going to have the... higher range though in that striking, because a lot of people are seeing that. Michael Johnson 8,700 on DraftKings against Fili 7.5. I think Fili might be a little bit of a play here for 7.5 though. Johnson has to get that finish at 8.7, and I guess we do see that. The real question is, do I play Fili at all? You got to let me know now, because I'm going to mess up my night if I put Fili on there or not.
I don't think I'm going to play Fili anywhere.
Anywhere for 7.5?
Yeah, and I was thinking about it, because everybody else just looks at this and they see those losses, but I just don't see that. If Fili can't do what Khabib did, then I just don't see him winning. But maybe Alpha Male knows that. Are they all of a sudden going to send Fili in to take down Michael Johnson for an entire fight? I don't think so.
Yeah.
And Michael Johnson knows the Alpha Male game plan. So, Johnson. I don't think they're paying attention to Fili too much. They're all worried about... it's not even like you're like, well, he's training with the champion. No. He's training with a guy that beat a guy that kind of got a dirty split with the real champion and no one really agreed with, and he got that belt way back when. Anyways, that was a deep, long story to put down Dominic Cruz. I didn't even know why I had to do that. Michael Johnson, KO round 2.
So then we go to the main event. We have Justin Gaethje, one of the premier fighters for premier top choices for most violent fighters in the UFC, comes out with a tenacious game plan, moves forward, puts his head down, coming off of his first 2 losses ever, coming in the UFC against Eddie Alvarez, then 4 months after that, Dustin Poirier. 4 months after that, he wants to get in there against James Vick, who notoriously 13-1 has not been able to find fights like other fighters. James Vick just always has people fall out or people just not want to sign a bout with him. And at 31 years old, he's sitting in his prime at 6'3" against Justin Gaethje's 5'11", 5-inch reach advantage for Vick. But Vick does use a really good jab. Always underrated boxing. He was a Golden Gloves, has good wrestling, and uses his length well with those ninja chokes and just long limbs. Off of his back, he can be really nasty with triangles as well. James Vick coming out of that Lloyd Irving camp. Good coaching. I've heard mixed reviews about it, but Lloyd Irving has always had guys that leave him, but they go on to be great fighters because the fundamentals that are taught there are still fundamental. So you can talk all the shit you want about the coach, but he's proven to show people the basics well. Justin Gaethje, we know what we're getting with this guy. Puts his head down, throws kicks and punches, throws all sorts of dynamic stuff at the end of rounds, doesn't worry about his gas tank, really goes for broke in there in 5 rounds. It's rare that this guy goes to decision if people can keep up with those leg kicks. James Vick doesn't check the best leg kicks in the world. Being that tall and gangly, he tends to lean his head back straight sometimes, and if you're not trying to throw an overhand right to catch that, the best lineup is a kick. So stylistically on the feet, I think Vick is going to be in trouble in the first and second round here. The things that I really don't like about Gaethje, which I think everyone's saying, is you got knocked out brutally for the first time ever in your career within the year, and you're getting another fight against somebody who doesn't really knock people out but has solid fundamentals in there. It's whether Vick can take the punishment that Poirier and Alves did, because Vick hasn't been in a fight.
Vick can knock people out. He's knocked everyone out.
He's knocked 3 guys out, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And of recent, like in the last how many years?
TKO over Joe Duffy, which we had here. He decisioned Trinaldo. He TKO'd Polo Reyes. And then he had one before then. Those are 2 top guys, but I would say that Gaethje's Alvarez and Poirier are still top, higher level competition.
And he didn't win.
Yeah, true. Good point. Good point.
He didn't look great. He hasn't looked great since Michael Johnson to me.
Right. So in this fight, I think with anybody who fights Justin Gaethje, it's whether you decide to brawl with him. And I think Gaethje does a good thing of making people brawl because of that forward pressure. But in the workups for this, James Vick has never one time said, yeah, dude, I'm going to whoop your ass and get in there in a fight. You're going to be punchy. Everything James Vick, to me, what he's saying is, I'm going to use my range, pick you apart, and in 5 rounds, I'm going to knock your ass out. Where Gaethje is openly like, dude, stop being a pussy and just brawl. Let's bang, bro. Let's bang. And it's just another check mark for me to decidedly put it in for Vick, even though I think Vick is going to come out of it with his bumps and bruises and cuts on his face. I do think that Justin Gaethje is just fighting a little much too soon. He's making a money grab, and his health is definitely being affected from it. You can hear it in his slurred speech. I think he's due to retire soon, especially after this next knockout, if not have maybe 2 years off.
Well, I think he always said, he's like, I'm coming in this, I'm going to give you 5 fights and I'm out. I think he's always kind of said that since before the Michael Johnson fight. Yeah. He's like, this is how many you get from me and I'm out.
I mean, everyone's been a main event.
Yeah, and he's gotten everything he's wanted from the UFC from it. He's like, you're going to get 5 amazing fights from me. I'll give you guys, I want him to say they're the funnest fights ever, and we'll see.
So, also a potential fight of the night.
I was thinking, this is a fight of the year. How could you even say the other things are potential fight of the night if this one's a potential fight of the year?
Is every Justin Gaethje fight a potential fight of the year? Right? It's must-watch TV.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Must-watch TV.
And Vick is a fun fighter to me. Yes. Even picking apart someone on the outside, and he can knock someone out. I think I had Polo Reyes in that fight against Vick, and I love James Vick. But, we had him as the underdog, I think, against Trinaldo.
Yep.
And Trinaldo, punching style, it's just as frightening as getting punched by Gaethje. Gaethje can knock somebody out. Gaethje does have killer wrestling, and he rarely has to use it because everyone kind of knows about it.
Yep.
But the whole thing, in my opinion, that just has cost Justin Gaethje is for some reason he stopped kicking. We saw him kick apart Michael Johnson's legs.
Yep.
And then from that fight, all the way to now, I think you can look progressively as each round goes on. If you take all the rounds of those fights, and has thrown less and less kicks as he's been in the UFC. And I think that's a silly game plan, especially against a long, lean guy like James Vick. So I think Justin Gaethje just too much, and it's kind of the same as everyone says. Nick Newell, like, oh, he only lost to Justin Gaethje. He only lost to Justin Gaethje. Well, Justin Gaethje's only won one fight in the UFC.
It's true, but those are high-level guys he's in there with. They're top fivers. Poirier and Alvarez are former champ, and no, and he beat Michael Johnson, who was in top 10. As you're saying all of this, with the leg kicks, I don't know what I was picturing. James Vick coming in with one of those long knees right up the middle, because we saw Alvarez and Poirier land that knee with that tuck chin a few times. James Vick will throw that knee straight up the middle. If he doesn't hit the body and the head's right there, I could see a gnarly finish as well. I have a decision so far. I might turn that into a finish as the fight embeddeds and everything goes on. Definitely stick close to the Twitter, because we'll post out a couple just reviews, or I will personally, maybe a bet or two in the props.
I think James Vick could pull out a submission. I think he finishes the fight.
What round would you say?
4.
Later on?
Yeah. Because he is going to take his time. Because we haven't seen James Vick fight 5 rounds before. And so he doesn't know himself how much cardio he's going to have. So I think he's really going to have a slow pace, listen to his coaches, and let Justin Gaethje punch himself out.
So 8,600 on DraftKings for James Vick, the slight favorite at minus 160 against 7,600 Gaethje minus 130 or plus 130. For a 5-rounder, I could see myself putting Gaethje on a couple spots, especially if I see a decision and you see it later in the rounds. At Gaethje's pace, in his losses, he gets 40, 50, 60 points.
Yeah. I don't know unless it happens fast. I can't believe James Vick is such a favorite. Yes, I can. Look how inflated everything is. It's like they're in my brain. Yeah, so James Vick, I'm going to put him on some things. I don't know about Justin Gaethje. I guess out of the low players, he's not even my favorite low guy. I think James Vick is going to finish him, but I do think he's going to take his time. I don't know how many punches Justin's going to land.
This is, again, must-watch TV.
It's going to be such a good fight.
I can't wait. It's been a little break
we've had. I think there's fun fights on this.
Oh, yeah. We profiled quite a few.
We called a few. This could be fight of the night.
And definitely the main event is a must-watch, whatever way you can get to it.
There's a good chance, if you're a betting person, that there is something on this fight card that will be considered for, is this one of the best fights of the year?
Definitely. I think Kansas has a potential for cards of the year.
Lincoln, Nebraska.
Lincoln. Ooh.
You're like somewhere in there.
Somewhere in America.
Somewhere in that bread basket. Yeah.
So, if you're following us on the gram as well, check out our freaking James Vick posts and stuff. I thought we had some good fan art posting as of late. Definitely smiling
James
and profiling. Get a like out there.
Follow us wherever you want, and make sure you're telling a friend, liking and subscribing, and thank you for listening.
Let's go the Bean!
Thanks for listening to LaTB. For all things Lesbo and the Bean, head over to lesboandthebean.com or follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.